I started one of the last books I wrote, some of you probably read this story, with the account of a temple in northern Thailand in Sukhothai that had a huge old and quite famous Buddha statue. And as you know, in Burma and Thailand and those cultures, they're quite revered and people go and make pujas and offerings. And this was kind of a folk statue, giant, made out of clay, painted, but because it had been there for 700, 800, 900 years, it was revered for its staying power. And so people went and they made offerings. And every 100 or 200 years it would crack a bit, and then they would patch it up and repaint it. And this happened in the 1960s when I was there first. But because they had flashlights in this particular 100-year thing, one of the young monks tried to look in the cracks to see how they made this thing, and this glint of gold shone out. And then he looked in another crack, and a little glint of this luminous gold light shone out, explored a little further, and discovered under the cracks in the clay was a Buddha statue that they uncovered that was the largest cast image, and really beautiful, of the awakened one made out of gold that had ever been created in Southeast Asia. And now it's become a great pilgrimage place. But the monks and the caretakers of the temple understood that this golden Buddha had been covered with clay and lasted for all these years as a way to protect this image, this symbol, from marauding armies and regime changes and all the kind of social disruptions that come periodically in any society. And in some way, this is a symbol of our own practice. As it says in the Buddhist text, luminous is this consciousness, is your own consciousness, your own true nature, but it is covered by the various states of fear and confusion, of greed, and so forth, that color this consciousness. But your original nature, like that golden statue, is luminous, free, shining. And this isn't something far away. It's the nature of consciousness itself. That which is listening to these words, that which is inhabiting the personality and body and conditions of your life, the awareness and consciousness that knows is in itself inherently pure. And therefore, said the Buddha, in many dialogues where he was confronted by people who said, you were a prince and now you're a beggar and I'm a Brahmin, and there was a lot of one-upmanship, and half these dialogues are little battles with people in the sutras. And he said, one is noble not by birth, not by caste or creed or race. Nobility is that which shines from the heart of a being. And if one acts in a noble way, that is the true expression of what nobility means. So I saw yesterday or the day before, I guess it was yesterday, in the Sunday Times magazine section, an article entitled The Tire Iron and the Tamale. And it was by a man who lives in Portland, and he had a bunch of car trouble. He'd borrowed cars and a blowout of a tire, a blown fuse, ran out of gas several times in the last 2 years. And each time it happened, he was by the road trying to get help, and he said no one would help. The tow trucks would just cruise past me, or I'd get a ride to the gas station and they wouldn't lend me a gas can, quote, for safety reasons, but they'd sell me a cheap plastic one without a top for $15 or $20, you know. And you know who came to my rescue all these times, he said? Immigrants. Salvadorian, Mexican, Ethiopian. Each time these folks would stop, he said, I had the tire blowout, I didn't have a jack, and this car pulls up full of a family from Mexico, doesn't even speak very good English. But, I show them the wheel, and he gets out his jack and starts to crank up the Jeep and help me and so forth. And then I'm working with him, I break his tire iron. No worry, he says, de nada, no problem. He gives it to his wife, she runs off to town, and 15 minutes later is back with another tire iron. And we finished the job. It was a lot because it was in the mud and filthy and sweaty. And his wife came out with a big jug of water. And I tried to put a $20 bill in his hands. He wouldn't take it. So I went up to the van and I slipped it to his wife, thinking maybe she would, you know. And then after I said my goodbyes, and I'm walking back to the Jeep, the daughter who spoke English calls out and says, "Hey, have you had any lunch?" I said no, so she runs up and hands me a tamale. Now this family, poorer than just about everybody else who on that stretch of highway, working in the orchards to pick, fruit, where time is money, took a couple hours out of their day to help this strange guy on the side of the road, where the people in tow trucks just cruised by. And they weren't done. I thanked them again, walked back to the car, opened the foil on my tamale. I was hungry. And what would I find? My $20 bill in there. No, I ran back, knocking on the van. The guy rolls down his window. He saw the 20 in my hand and says, no, por favor, please take. Then he searches really hard for English words. He smiles. He says, today, you, tomorrow, me. And he laughed and he rolled up his window and his daughter waved and I just sat in my car eating the best tamale I have ever had and weeping. And in the months past, I've changed some tires, given rides to gas stations, once drove 50 miles out of my way to get a girl to an airport, and I won't take a penny for it. And we hear a story like this and get touched by it because it touches that gold in us. It touches that beauty and that nobility. And we long for it, we want to inhabit it and live it, because it's the gift that we're born with.